how amazing that you've used it to help your clients, I mean, in the financial industry, and you can see the difference, you know the difference. That's awesome. You meet them where they're at. No wonder why. I mean, they're validated and seen.
And when it comes to building wealth, I give them all different things to focus on, because someone with a long green line is going to take more risk, who might be better at flipping homes or taking bigger kind of investment risks, versus someone who's just going to slowly over time grow their wealth. On today's episode of Real Money, I have my best friend Gail back. She's been on the show a number of times, and today we're going to talk about our genius when it comes to money. Everybody has their own unique way of working with money and their own unique way of working, period. Gail's going to talk about what the Kolbe is, why you have to know what the Kolbe is, and also we're going to talk about the financial Kolbe, which I think is one of the most underutilized tools that we have in the financial space today. We're going to talk about who you are, who you're born to be, and exactly how you're supposed to be working with your money. You've got to listen to this episode. It is life-changing. Let's go. Gail,
Nice.
I think maybe our first episode we touched on the Kolbe. I think we probably did, but that was years ago now, going on almost 3 years ago.
No, it was your notes that we talked about last time from when you learned. Yeah, it was,
totally different. I was in a totally different vibe last time. I had come out of this retreat.
Yes.
A lot of learnings. I've made a lot of shifts as a result from that retreat, our conversations. And today I think so I'm on a mission now, right now, in this moment, with my brand, of separating myself from other experts so that my listeners, my viewers can know exactly who I am, what I stand for, and the power of the work that I do and that we're doing in our world. And one of the tools that I've been able to glean from you is the Kolbe. First using it for me, then using it for the boys, and now working with my clients to understand how they work. And not only how they work, which I'll have you explain that from a cognitive perspective, but how you're born to be with money. Because there's no one-size-fits-all approach to money.
Right.
And using your examples of your boys and how they work so differently with money, I think would be super valuable. And I really want to dial that in for everyone listening today about why it's so important to know who you are.
Right.
So that you can work the way that you were born to work.
Right.
So will you give your the professional introduction to yourself?
Right. And honestly, if there was a segment of life that I would say was the last to come on board, it would be money and conation. It would be money and conative and how I work. For some reason, it was like the last person to get on the bus. I don't know why it was so delayed, but
it typically is, actually.
Is it?
I have people who come to me who've worked on their health.
Right.
They've worked on their relationships. They've worked on their education, like the wheel of life. They're firing at all cylinders in the wheel of life, and the money's the last thing. I think for psychological reasons, emotional reasons, there's a lot of people that just aren't trained to help people with what we do,
right,
and what I talk about in my world, so it gets missed. Like, hey, I'm budgeting and I still am not getting what it is that I want.
And I compartmentalized. For some reason, I was like, it doesn't apply to this.
It's like somehow on the separate side of my life, it's on the shelf somewhere. It's all connected.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention, for sure.
Yeah.
So conation, you want me to talk about the 3 parts of the mind and the 4 talents? Is that what
I'd love for you to introduce yourself from a professional lens, because the listeners and viewers know you as my friend.
Right.
And we've had a lot of intimate conversations about your journey with money.
Right.
And today I really want to lean in on why Kolbe. And I think that your story, along with what you do professionally, matters for people to hear that.
I was just listening to a friend of mine, Andre, who also has a podcast. He was on Dan Sullivan's podcast from Strategic Coach. And Dan Sullivan asked a question that I've been ruminating on for a few days. And he said, what can you not do? What can you not do? And when I see someone operating outside of their natural strengths, letting that go is what I cannot do. I can't let that go. It's hard for me to let that go. And it's hard for me to let that go because there's so much power when people are operating the way they were born to operate. there's so much strength and so much power. And that's what I do. That's my passion. That's what I do for a living for all sorts of people. And they come to it at different ages and stages in life, that awareness that they need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Usually it involves a fair amount of friction.
Yeah.
From other people, from themselves, if they're trying to get over through something. And so I've used this tool called the Kolbe concept.
When did you find it?
I found it in 1991.
Yeah.
And my parents found it for me because they thought that I had a problem running my life. And so they're like, we're going to fix you up and you're going to take this test and it's going to tell us and you how to do things the right way.
The right way. You mean their way?
At the time.
Yeah.
It was their way. And this wasn't around. I know I've said this before when I was in school. So when I took the assessment in 1991, it validated me. It validated what my parents were trying to fix. It actually just secured that I wasn't going anywhere and I'm not changing. So what they thought at the time was something that could be fixed or toned down.
What was it? What was it that needed to be fixed?
I would say a few things. It was probably my last minute talent, my what if scenario talent, my extreme or bold or blunt, which is a bottom line approach that I have that maybe could be fixed. Maybe I could be a little more, I would say, digging into the details, making a plan, things that I don't do naturally that I felt the world had been trying to get me to do for a long time. And this test proved, because it's inside of me and it's not hereditary, that was my superpower. And that's when I first figured that out or found out about it.
How young were you?
That was actually when I graduated from college in 1991.
Wow.
Because I came home with a major that was very strange and no one knew
it.
No one knew what to do with it.
What was it?
My parents were like, how do you make any money? It was speech and theater. I was stage managing shows. I was getting A's on everything. I was in my lane. And I came home and I said, I'm going to be a stage manager. And of course, my dad's like, how are you going to make any money doing that?
Yep. So backstory, we've talked about this very intimately. Backstory is that there was something that was broken, my word, not yours.
Right.
Your parents saw it as something that needed to be fixed.
Right.
And I think that so many I can totally relate to that because you and I have very similar MOs of how the school system, academic system, and certain systems are set up for people who are not like us. And therefore, we think there's something wrong with us.
Right.
And at that time, you're not wanting to do research. You're not wanting to put a well thought out plan together before you take action. Your impulsiveness or seemingly impulsivity and quick decision making and what did you say? What were the other things? The quick start in you, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, my last minute,
doing things last minute, all or nothing. There was something wrong with you.
So, yes,
from their perspective, what was the impact on you emotionally? From that?
Of course, I wanted her to go tell everyone in my past that had told me to be something different.
What do you want to say? What do you want to tell them?
Can you go tell all my teachers that I'm okay? Can you tell my family that I'm okay? Can you tell my third grade teacher that kicked me out of class that I'm okay? I'm really okay. I would say that's what I would have loved for her to tell my teachers. Yeah.
That caused a lot of conflict for you at a young age. And I know I don't know if we've talked about it on the show as openly about you being suicidal from a young age. Now there's the affective part of our lives, the emotional part of our lives that results in that. But hearing you say even from third grade that you felt like there was something wrong with you or different.
That's because I had a neurological disorder on top of this too, Tourette syndrome.
That's right.
So that and the tics, people thought I was trying to make them laugh. So they would kick me out of school or class because they thought I was trying to be a jokester and I wasn't. I was like moving in a way. I had to move. It was a tic, a neurological thing. So I had that in addition to me solving problems differently. So that was a compounded thing. And then when I was 15, I overdosed on the medication that was there to calm me down, to kind of relax me. And I wanted to be permanently relaxed when I was 15 because it just wasn't working. Life wasn't working anymore at that point in time. Not as it was.
Clearly you're here.
I'm here.
And I know that if you go to Gail's website, Plans for Prosper, you'll see her share her story and her mission about working with children. You've worked with my kids, your kids. We have conversations about, and that was a turning point for you. And then taking the Kolbe at 21.
Yes.
Was, my words, liberating in some ways.
But you know what? It was interesting. I thought it would be like this with a lot of things. It was the beginning. It wasn't, I mean, it was liberating, but it was the beginning of a practice for me to practice being me. As crazy as that sounds, I know we talked about that before. It was the beginning of learning, and I'm still learning. I'm not arrived. I'm not done, but I'm still practicing being me.
Yeah. Something that I don't remember who said that this really resonated with them, but like how hard and how much work it really is just to be
right.
Me or you.
Yes.
Who was that
last
with?
podcast? I think we said that.
That's right. How hard it is to just be yourself.
Right. Because
we're conditioned to be a certain way. School system is conditioning students to be a certain way. And like I experienced with Connor from a young age, as if he wasn't that, which he's not.
Right.
He was a bad kid and he hates school. He hates school, although he's so smart and talented in his own way.
Sure. Yeah.
School just, he's like, Mom, I can't do it. You know, anything that requires a lot of biology, chemistry, right? That you have to like either have a photographic memory for or go deep into detail, memorize different equations. He's just like, I'm not motivated. I don't really care about this.
Right.
I don't want to do it.
Right. And he will do what he cares about. You've seen that happen.
Oh, yeah. He'll go to bat for whatever he cares about.
Most people do.
Most people do. Okay. So you're 21 years old. You take this Kolbe and it's validating. And the feedback that I get over and over and over again from clients that we work with together is that when they take this test, they say, I feel seen. And I feel validated for the first time in my life.
Wow. Wow.
Like a light bulb goes on. So you chose then at that point to do what with the information that you had, with the Kolbe information that you had the first time you took it?
I chose to, it was a bit of a, I was still, I was like, what am I going to do to appease my parents and be me at the same time?
Wow.
I still had that mix. And I thought, how could I combine theater and sales? Because my dad wanted me to be in sales. And then that's why I went into television. So I moved 8 hours away from where I was up to a small television market. And
is that Duluth?
It was.
In Duluth?
Yep.
Yeah.
I told you the meetings, right? Like, did I tell you what I did in the meeting?
Yeah. Tell me again, though.
I would go into the meeting and I was super young. And I remember it was every week. And if I had been done, I'm like, oh, I already know this. I heard it. I would pack up my stuff and leave the meeting because it didn't pertain.
Oh, yeah.
It just didn't pertain to me anymore.
Got it.
It didn't pertain to me. So I would pack up and leave. And I'm like, well, I don't know why everyone else is kind of sitting there. I'm done. And I would just wait for them to kind of come out and I would start my day. And this went on, I mean, every week and no one said anything. And then one day I was in the meeting and I was packing up and my boss was smoking at the time and he was having a bad day because he lit his cigarette backwards.
Oh,
so it was a bad day. And he just was like, God damn it, Mahoney. And he slams his fist. He's like, sit down. I'm so sick of you getting up and walking out when you want to and when you think it's done. I was like, what's the deal with him? Like, this is what I've been doing for a while.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not what you're supposed to do. So I do learn the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would have to...
Me too.
When I signed out, it was so noisy in the office. I would say, I'm going home to make calls. And then people would say to me, well, Gail, you can't say that. Like, why? It's true. And then when I have a call, I'll write down where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't say that. It looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
what looked bad about it?
I didn't know. So I was like learning how to manipulate. I don't know, lie, do what I needed to do. I was being honest, but it didn't work. So again, I would learn the hard way.
Okay. The hard way. So because of your cognitive strengths.
Right.
So let's bring this back to Colby because we're going to dig into Colby.
Uh-huh.
Your cognitive strengths, you were leaning into them.
Right.
You were done with the meeting 5 minutes in because you got what you needed. You left. People are saying, you can't do that. It's not professional etiquette. It's not professional protocol. And then you're working your day the way you need to work your day. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not etiquette. It's not protocol. And you're getting your wrist slapped basically. And then you're moving back into operating inauthentically.
Right. And the irony of it is there was a job fair in Duluth and I signed up to stage manage a show. So it's in you and it will always rise to the top. Mm-hmm. It's like fat in soup. It will rise to the top. And if ignored, well, that's going to lead to health problems, but you're going to get there anyway because they're going to see me or they're going to see you. And they're going to be frustrated and stressed out.
Who's they?
Clients, people, because they're operating against their grain.
Oh, I got you. So at some point we get frustrated, too frustrated, and then we go searching for help.
Right.
And the lucky ones find who they need.
Right. Right.
I just had a conversation with my friend about this. She's going through menopause and she felt so lucky that she found the right group because she knew if she went to her OB, she was just going to get prescribed antidepressants or something. Right. Mm-hmm. So to that point, which is exactly why we're here having this conversation, is that someone is listening to this conversation going, oh my God, right. I get that.
Yes.
And so the pain of working against your grain, financially or otherwise, is for a lot of people so painful that they just check out.
Yes.
They just check out.
Yes.
Like, fuck it.
Right.
Check out, sell out, whatever you call it.
Health issues.
Your body's going to manage it for you.
It will.
It keeps score.
It does.
So you're pursuing this path. Mm-hmm. You're being taught, like, to your point, I learned through making mistakes and failure too. That's the entrepreneur in me, but that's also the quick start in me, which we're going to explain what that means here in a minute. I need to take action. I need to learn. I need to risk, and I need to fail to learn what I need to learn. And that's not, especially working in higher education, that was not valued.
Yes. Right.
That was not valued.
Right.
And so at some point I left. Knowing what I know now, I left the university system because I was not built or designed to do the kind of work that I needed to do.
Right.
But it was showing up in so many other painful ways.
You didn't know that at the time, did you?
I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
But all the red tape and bureaucracy and rules, which is exactly why I left being a financial advisor, was FINRA and SEC and compliance and all these rules. I thought there was something wrong with me.
Oh, because you didn't follow them, or
because it didn't work for me.
Ah, interesting.
I felt stupid. Me and my chemistry teacher in high school got in a fight over this. I felt stupid, but at the same time, I was being successful in other areas. I just didn't feel like they were the areas that were going to be respected.
Right.
Or that I would, so like being student body president. Woohoo, right? But I didn't feel smart.
Again, leadership roles from the get-go. Right.
Yeah. Very interesting. And so tying it back to the Colby, you were already picking these different experiences to go in your lane. When did you just say, I'm out?
I quit.
Yeah.
I quit in 2003. It was many years later, but
Why?
Well, I was having a hard time getting pregnant. And I thought and believed it was the stress of the job that was causing the infertility. And I quit. I remember it was December 7th, 2003.
What was the stress of the job?
Yeah. I was asked to, that following year would have been a political year, 2004. And I was asked to get a certain percentage of business and not a dollar amount. And I knew what I had to do. I would have to be inauthentic to myself to get that money. And I didn't want to do that. So I said, no, no thanks. And it was daily. It was a lot of daily stuff and grind and and I love negotiating. That wasn't a problem, but I can get it done. Like some days I'd work, I don't know, 4 hours. Other days I would work 7 hours. Like the time frame and then the time constraint, obviously way back when, has always been like, why? I don't understand. If I'm making my numbers, then why do I need to be here for X amount of hours? It just didn't make sense to me.
Nope.
So all of that, and then what they were expecting that I thought was unrealistic and unethical, quite frankly, I just was out.
That's where the cognitive meets the affective parts of our brains.
I would say, right.
Okay.
That intersection.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. So just another example of how you're not aligned.
Right.
And there's rules that don't make sense, that don't work for you. If you're performing, you're performing. Who cares if you work 2 hours versus 10?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's then educate about what the Kolbe actually is.
Sure.
And then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Absolutely. You're talking about the 4 talents, right?
Yeah, the 4 talents. But let's talk about the 3 parts of the mind first.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
Sure.
Okay.
3 parts of the mind, thinking, feeling, and doing. This is the doing part of the mind. It's a non-emotional part of the mind. It's innate. So you're born with this talent. It doesn't come from your parents. It's just you. And it is measured in I would say, 4-digit number that represents 4 talents that you naturally have. So non-emotional part of the mind, it's how you do things, how you solve problems. And it measures, like I said, 4 behaviors. And the first one is called fact finder. And that is your need for details and information. And you'll either be born with a need for details or a need for very little details. That's the fact finder talent.
Yep.
And
some people need a lot of details.
And some people need a little. And there's nothing good or bad or right or wrong with any of it. It just is. Okay. It just is. And then the second talent is called follow through. And that is your need for systems and organization and structure. Same scenario. Some people need a plan and some people need structure and others don't. And that's okay.
Yep.
Right? That's okay. Wherever you are on that scale, 1 through 10, the only difference between the numbers is time spent in that area.
Yeah. It's not like if you get a 1 in one area,
right,
or a 10 in another area, it's not that one's better than the other.
Right.
And in a world that likes to measure up,
right,
that is not what this test is telling.
No.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, with kids, there isn't a number. So they don't compare. And they can know that, their strengths are perfect, just where they are. So the third talent is called quick start. It's green. And that is your need for risk and uncertainty and your need to innovate or your need to stabilize. And
innovate or stabilize.
Gotcha. On either end of the continuum.
Okay. So people who have a low quick start or a 1 to 3 quick start have what need?
I'm even going to correct that.
Sorry, not low. No.
Short.
Short.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
That's good that you knew I was going to do that.
Yeah.
So what your question was, what do you need if you
What's
have
the difference with someone who has a 1 to 3?
So if it's a shorter green line, they need to keep things pretty stable, pretty consistent, status quo, not a lot of surprises.
I gotcha.
And then a long green line is last minute, what if scenarios, out of the box thinking, a lot of pressure cooking thinking, I like to call it. When you're very much under the gun and your best work is done.
Gotcha.
Right. That's the other end of the green line.
Under the gun. Okay. Yep. And then what's the final one?
The last one is called implementer. And that is a need for your hands-on, getting your hands on the world or your environment.
So what's the difference between someone on the
Yep.
Because there's people that are in the middle too, but what, just to show the difference.
Yeah. At the top end of implementer is a need for someone to envision how something will physically be. They don't need to touch it, see it, or feel it. same thing as, they don't need to be there and get their hands on it. They can just trust that someone is going to fix the table, build the boat, fly the plane, do the gardening, grow the food, but they don't need to do that themselves. So I don't need to change my own oil or change a tire. I don't need to do that. But at the other end of the continuum of implementer, those people do need to get their hands on the world. And they cook, they're surgeons, they're race car drivers. They use tools very masterfully and skillfully. And this is a need to solve a problem, right? It is a need to solve a problem. So this is how they contribute to the world. This is how they start working the process.
I love it.
In that talent.
Okay.
Right?
Got it. Sounds very Divergent. Did you see the movies?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
It is kind of like that, though. Is that you're born to do what you're born to do.
You are, yes.
Right? And everybody does things differently, tying this into money.
Yes.
Tying this into money. And certain people trend towards certain careers and kind of work based on their cognitive strengths.
Yes, absolutely. I hope so. Absolutely.
Well, that would be ideal.
That would be ideal.
That would be ideal. And your journey is so, like, the way that you and I've have had conversations, multiple conversations about your own journey, was it really is a path to discovering who you are, how you work best, and embracing that. Because in a non-quick start world, so what's the plot, not plot twist, what's the word? I forgot. Okay, I forgot the word. Anyway, you and I are both high quick starts.
You're higher than I am.
Yeah, it's not.
You're higher than I am.
Yeah. It's not that there isn't a place for quick starts. It's just that there's so many kinds of work that aren't for quick starts, and vice versa. Right. And thinking about Kolbe and your cognitive strengths.
Right.
Again, you can go to Gail's website, Plans for Prosper, and find out more and how you can take the Kolbe. But this is a shameless plug for Gail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Is that you're born to work the way that you work, and there's certain careers that are great for you and certain careers that aren't. And there's certain ways to be with money for certain Kolbes, and there's certain ways not. And for money, what I realized through the Kolbe, this was a huge aha for me. And I think explaining the difference between Tyler and Noah would be a great way to go.
Right.
For those of you who are trying to make sense of this for yourselves, is that the way that you do money as a fact finder follow through is different than someone who's a high quick start or high implementer.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me, I want to hear about that.
Okay.
I do want to hear about that.
So now I'm having my clients take the Kolbe even before we start setting up systems and processes. And everybody know, I mean, if you don't know, welcome to my world. I talk about budgeting and how you don't have to have a strict budget.
Right.
Only if it supports you. But there are other ways to manage money that do not require you to have a very strict budget. And that some people get riled up when they hear me talk about that. But to your point, to your question, I have clients who are a high implementer. Jimmy, my husband, is one of these people who he looks at a spreadsheet and has no motivation, no inspiration, or no desire because money doesn't make sense to him in that way. Because he needs to have his hands on things. Cash. He's a welder by trade. He makes stuff with his hands.
Right.
And so he likes his money in cash.
Yes.
He likes having cash in the bank. He likes having cash in his wallet. That is how he likes to manage his money. My clients also, I have a hairdresser, so I have a lot of hairdresser clients who also have that implementer.
Okay.
Because they work with their hands and they're more kinesthetic kind of people where we don't set up budgets. We set up cash systems for them to manage and see and feel. They honestly feel disconnected from their money altogether if they can't touch it.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yes, that's awesome. That's great.
And then on the other side, a fact finder follow through,
right? Someone
who is high fact finder follow through need to have a plan and need to have a roadmap before they take action.
Right.
before they take action.
That's where the spreadsheet would come in.
That's where the spreadsheet comes in.
Right.
And where they're in so much pain when they get to me is they've never learned how to set up a plan in a way that they can see the whole outlook, because budgeting typically focuses on 1 month at a time.
Right.
So when I can help them, which is where I start differently with every client based on what their Colby says now, because their needs are different. Their needs are different.
Right.
So then we map it out. They can see it. I have them do map it, teach them how to use the systems that I use. Everybody's different, but I have them go out as far as 3 years.
Wow.
Say, okay, let's start with where you're at right now. Let's get a handle on where you're at right now. But if they can see where this is all going, they're way more motivated to take action.
That's super interesting because you're dealing with one person at a time, right?
One person at a time.
Okay. So Swifty, my husband, he has a long red line, red line. So he's into the details, not as much as I am. Right. So that the quick start and the fact finder dealing with the money on a regular basis is super interesting. That it is the same. It is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So if we're running into a discrepancy on a Saturday morning when we usually have our budget meeting, he will dig. He will try and look up the discrepancy, and I would pick up the phone.
Yep.
Again, no right or wrong to anything. It's just a difference in approach of how you're going to handle a problem. And knowing that, I obviously am like, all right, yeah, do all the digging you need. It's interesting.
It is.
And I'm glad we keep doing it. I'm glad we keep having a meeting to make sure we're on the same page. That helps me. That face-to-face meeting helps me just keep in alignment with our finances so they're not too far off track.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
So then quick start.
Yeah.
Typically, not always, definitely not always. I don't want you to assume that just because you have a high quick start means that you have a low fact finder follow through.
Right.
Because I've seen clients with a combination. Yep. I'm sure you've seen all kinds of different Colbys. But typically someone who has a longer green line, that need for risk and uncertainty financially can be incompatible with how finances are taught.
Oh, yes. When I would pick my 401k plan, I'd always do heavy risk. I would do a ton of risk.
Yep.
Interesting. Yes.
Yep.
Keep going.
And what I noticed, so here's where the rubber meets the road for me. This was like a huge aha.
Right.
Is that there are a lot of people, so we can talk about Noah. There are a lot of people who have that long red line and long blue line who go into financial planning.
Yes.
Who also tend to be relatively, not always, but relatively risk adverse, or at least need to know how this is all mapping out, how this is all planning. They can strategize and put a strategic plan together. They do that beautifully.
Right.
And those are the people that trend into finance because it's work that they love. But the other side of that is then also if they're giving financial advice and coaching to a quick start, for a quick start, a lot of times we feel like, I know for me, I can say that it just felt really constrictive and like it wasn't going to work for me. And I didn't want to sit down and do a plan. I just needed to know like, hey, help me. Like, what action do I need to take right now? Like, give me some quick wins.
And what would they say when you said that?
Well, working in the finance industry, it's not necessarily me because I came through the finance industry and I butted heads against it. So it wasn't like they were giving me coaching. But what my clients come back to me and say is that they don't feel seen and heard.
Okay.
Or that the advisor's trying to work with them how they work, how the advisor works.
Naturally.
Right. And it doesn't work for them.
Right.
So they never end up getting the results that they want. They're not happy, but they don't know what to ask or how to advocate for how they work. So then it's just this conundrum that's going on in the finance industry.
Wow.
I know. It's a big problem. It's a big challenge. And how do we solve it? Well, this is how we start to get into it and go, okay, well, what would work for you versus someone else? And again, there is no one size fits all approach because we are all so different in the way that we work.
Wow. What a tool. How amazing that you've used it to help your clients, in the financial industry, and you can see the difference, you know the difference. That's awesome. You meet them where they're at. No wonder why. They're validated and seen.
And when it comes to building wealth, I give them all different things to focus on because someone with a long green line is going to take more risk who might be better at flipping homes or taking bigger kind of investment risks versus someone who's just going to slowly over time grow their wealth because they're less risk adverse.
Do they ever say to you, well, that's not how, well, that's not, wait a minute, are you sure that's okay? Because I learned or I heard, and we talked about the intersection yesterday.
Yep.
Right? That intersection of what you've always heard or thought was the right way to do it, which intersects with how you naturally do things, which is where the power is.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack.
It kind of is.
It is, because there's so much social conditioning. And then there's the actives. So we have 3 parts of the brain: how we think, how we feel, and how we do.
Yep.
So then how we do things conflicts with how we feel or how we think. And then we're just spinning in circles because we don't know how to reconcile those pieces.
I would say personally, or like from my experience, I think that the learned behavior intersects with your natural behavior. So you can change your feeling about things when you change your mindset about things. So my mindset about, growing up about money and now wasn't too far off base. It was not too far off base. It was pretty good. But there wasn't a lot of talk about it. So then I'm left to my own devices to make decisions about what I see on TV, what I see other people doing. Right. And I was never in front of the train. I was never that lead car on the train.
Yep.
I was always behind, trying to follow what other people did instead of taking charge and control of my money, because I never knew.
Right.
So it sounds like you put people literally in the driver's seat.
Yes, that's exactly what I do.
Of their own finances.
Thank you for saying it that way. That's exactly what I do.
Right. Their way. Right. So empowering them with themselves, with money, obviously empowers them in a lot of other areas in life too.
All areas. Because once they figure that, and for me, that's their biggest pain point once they get to me, is they can't figure it out financially, but it improves their marriages.
Right.
Because I'm able to bring couples together and say, this is how you work and this is how you work. Let's develop a system together. Again, I'm not the authority telling you how you have to do it.
Right.
But because of my long green line, I have all kinds of possibilities.
Lots of options
to say, here are all the ways that this can work. Let's figure out a way that can work for you. Rather than saying you have to do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're stupid.
And I don't really know anyone else that has that kind of money approach.
Shameless plug for Lisa Chastain.
True, though. It's very true. It's true.
It's true, because we are so unique in our backgrounds. We're so unique in our histories. We're so unique in how we see the world, how we work. How could we ever think that there's only one way to do something?
Right.
So thank you. So let's talk about in like real time how this shows up. So let's talk about the difference between Tyler and Noah, because you do this so well. What's different between the two of them?
Those are my kids.
Yeah.
2 boys, 17 and 19.
Yeah.
17-year-old is Tyler and the 19-year-old is Noah. And they're the opposite MO.
Yeah.
So they're
explain that.
They're the total opposite. So Noah has a long red and blue line, the first 2, and then a shorter green and yellow lines. And Tyler's the exact opposite, short. So Tyler doesn't need the details or a plan, and he has a long green line and a long yellow line. And when they were little, and they would make fun of me for this, but I would say, you need to give, save, and spend. Give, save, and spend. And give could be to a friend in need, or if you're going to sponsor, whatever. Give,
the
save,
3
and
buckets.
Spend. They're buckets. And so I would use poker chips that were worth 25 cents. And when they worked, I would put those poker chips in 3 different buckets. So then at the end of the week, they would cash in their buckets. And it would be like $1.50 or $3, and we'd put it in pots. Over time, Noah got very frustrated with this physical system, and he went to a spreadsheet.
How old was he?
I don't know, 14.
He went. So Noah, again, he's got high fact finder, high follow through.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And he didn't like the physical part of it.
He didn't need it. He didn't need the physical part of it.
He didn't need it.
And he also needed a plan. So when he had it on a spreadsheet, he could plan. And he does this now with, I think, an app that he puts in his paycheck, and the app diversifies his money and it's literally a picture of like his check and all of these webs.
Yep.
Have you seen that?
Yep.
Like leg, it looks like a spider or a tree, like all these different places that the money goes. And he thinks it's beautiful.
Yep.
Because it's all laid out. And I'm like, wow.
And it has a system.
That's a lot. But it totally works for him. He got so frustrated and disgruntled with the family's finances because he thought we were disorganized that he just did his on his own when he was 17. And now he's 19. So Tyler, on the other hand, was like, all right, a spreadsheet is the last thing I'm going to do. I need the buckets, but I need durable buckets. This is literally what happened because mine are cracking and falling apart. So we had to find the right physical container for him to put his money in. And that's what we did. And now he keeps cash in like a thing that looks like a book and it's on his shelf. So no one knows it's a safe. It's like that's a book.
Cool. Yeah.
And he loves it because it's hidden.
Yeah.
And his cash.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Totally different.
Very different.
And they've had the benefit of having you as their mom who has cultivated and given them permission to operate how they operate.
Right.
And they have a lot of freedom to be who they are. And so can you explain the different paths that they're taking because of that?
With finances.
Finances and then just in life. Because it's all related to finances.
Yeah. Right? I didn't want to be a parent who like was like, oh, you need $20. Like I wasn't just going to keep handing it out. So they have, with school and church activities, we'll pay for those, but everything else was kind of on them. And they had money to be able to do it. So I totally forgot your question.
Well, like for example, because his cognitive strengths are different than Noah's, Tyler's going a different path.
Yeah, right. So Tyler is going a different, he is a welder like Jimmy. So and his income is different. I've said this with the boys since I knew how they worked. So Tyler's income will be extreme highs and extreme lows because he needs that risk. He needs to be up against a wall and he'll make a lot of money. And then it's important for him to learn to hang on to it because then they're going to be dry seasons of life. And he's seeing that right now. He made a lot of money in construction in the summer. And then there's a couple dry months. And now he has a project, so he's making more money again. And then who knows what'll happen. But Noah's talent, his natural way of making money is kind of stair-stepping it. A little bit here, a little bit there, right? He'll get a promotion, he'll get a bump in pay, and it's a little bit by little bit. That's, from what I see, how they're going to be making their money for the rest of their life.
And what path is Noah taking in college?
He's a finance guy.
Yeah, he is. But he chose it.
Of course.
He chose it, right?
He switched. He was in engineering. And then, oh my gosh, the funniest thing. He said, Mom, I feel like I'm having an affair.
Yeah.
Because he's switching. He's like, I really want to do finance. And that's not that big of a crossover between engineering and finance. But he likes to say quantitative finance, which I think is another year or 18 months of education.
It's not just finance.
No.
Quantitative. Right. No, just kidding.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the best.
So
it's the best.
He's trading he's trading and he's learning a lot about himself and his emotions with money. A lot about that. And he loves it. He's also learning every time he goes. UNLV has a great program on, I think he goes Tuesday night, and he's learning about people and what environment he wants to be in, if he wants to be working with people's money, or a lot of people are more of an analyst.
Oh yeah, corporate finance versus personal finance.
Right. Kind of behind the scenes or out in front.
Yep.
He's learning about all that, and I'm so thankful because it's him. Right. And he keeps trying things out. And when he's interested, he'll stay after and talk to the professor or the speaker.
And when he's not,
then he'll leave.
He's out.
Right. And noticing that and recognizing that as a mom, as a wife, as a coach, is allowing him the freedom to try it on, see if it works, take it off if it doesn't, and trusting that he will go down the path that works for him and have the freedom to change it if it's not. That's a contributor. And I'm so proud and thankful that he is a contributor. They both are.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about a lot, and I agree with you, and we talk about with the way that we're parenting our kids, which you laugh at me every time I talk about how I'm parenting Range and Connor now compared to how before we met, I was parenting them.
You've changed quite a bit.
I've changed.
You have.
And Jimmy and I still get up against it because there's these beliefs or ideas about how our kids are supposed to be.
Right.
And I don't think Connor will ever watch this episode, but I owe him an apology for those earlier years because I was forcing him down a path that was more like my path. Than actually allowing him to be who he is.
Yeah.
Or even figuring that out. I didn't know any better. Again, parents, we don't know what we don't know.
We don't.
So with the Kolbe conversations and there's overall trust, here's what I've learned when it comes to the Kolbe, which is what I've learned from you, is that when people are motivated, they pay attention. But in order for them to be motivated, they have to feel free. And if they don't feel free, then they're like what I saw over and over again in the honors college with college students is they followed a path for their parents told them that this is a lot for first generation kids too, where their parents are saying, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to be an attorney because it makes money. But that also means that you can't be who you truly are, which then leads to midlife crises or quarter life crises where you wake up and you go, I am not. Blah.
It's not it.
Blah. I'm so frustrated. So anyway, I've taken off the reins with my kids.
And some would say that means you don't care about them. Then you're just going to let them go. And I get that a lot. You're just going to let them fail and go off into oblivion. And that's a good mom.
But neither of them are failing. But by society's norms or judgments, like what grades they get, like I don't really put a whole lot of emphasis on what grades they get anymore.
Right.
Because where I was parenting from was fear. And honestly, where I was living from was fear. Fear of being a failure. Fear of not. Fear. Financially, people live in fear.
Oh, wow.
Rather than leaning into who am I? What am I born to do? Let me go figure that out and do that. And that's where clients come to me in crisis.
Yeah. See how this whole thing takes time too? It takes time.
Yeah.
Because you learned this about your kids and I knew this about mine, but it just takes time to trust it, to trust the information and to try it on. Be like, all right, let's see. And honestly, I didn't want to spend my energy hounding and reminding and forcing something that wasn't going to happen. But it just takes time to be kind and see if this stuff's real. Like, is this legit? Are they really going to do something? If I take my hands off the wheel, are they really going to act? Do they? I mean, if they're free enough, they will.
Also, I think that the distinction is, and this is financially and otherwise in our lives, is that when we realize that no one's going to come and do it for us.
Yes.
What other choice do we have? And I've seen that light bulb go on for both of my kids. Like, I'm not doing this for you. How do you want to handle this? And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. How do you want to handle this? And Connor and they both manage money very differently, but I'm letting them figure it out.
Right.
And so all tying this back to the Kolbe is that we have these innate abilities. And when we give ourselves the freedom and the time and forgiveness, I've screwed up a lot. You and I are talking. I mean, I've screwed up a lot.
Yes.
And every single time it was for a purpose, for a journey. And a lot of people and just don't have the bandwidth for that. Or they feel like if they fail once, that's it. And then financially, we get into these scarcity conversations and fear conversations, which is the affective part of us.
Right.
The learned part of us, the emotional part of us, all of that. And then it's like, no wonder we have such dis-ease in our world because these tools aren't given to everyone. These awarenesses, which is exactly why we're here having this conversation today.
Right.
Can we shift gears to the financial Kolbe?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's the Kolbe A, and then your fact find. You have fact finder. Everybody has this in them.
Everybody has this in them.
So what's my MO again?
I think it's 3-2-10-3.
3-2-10-3. So I don't have a need for details. I don't have a need for follow through.
You have a need for very little details, and you have Yeah, you shortcut, circumvent the plan,
the
system.
I know. How did I end up in finance, right?
You did it your way. I mean, I think you were trying to do it your way.
I was the whole time.
For a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you kept like,
oh, this just doesn't work for me. Oh my gosh. Right. Oh, hitting my head up against the wall.
Yes.
And so.
Yeah. Talk about the risks you've taken since you've known your MO.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
was so freeing. It was so freeing.
Yes.
And
financial risks.
I'm constantly, and this is from a young age.
And changing things.
Risking things. Trying things, innovating things.
Right.
Coming up with my own ways of doing. Yeah. Let me test this. Let's try that.
Right.
When I took the test with you though, the first time, and the test will connect you to careers.
Mm-hmm.
That's another part of the test. It's the Kolbe. What is that called?
It's a separate test.
Yeah, it's a separate test. But you have to take the Kolbe A first.
Yes.
To know what your MO is. And then it says, okay, well, based on what your MO is, here are
the careers.
Right. And it matched me that I had a 95% success rate as an executive coach.
Right.
It was so liberating. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So that permission, and I didn't even know I needed permission, but I think a lot of people do.
Good point.
I didn't know that I needed it.
Mm-hmm.
But because I felt like I was wrong more than I was right, because I was comparing myself to other people versus just saying, this is who I am.
Right.
And then when it comes to the financial Kolbe, which is a deeper dive based on your MO, here's how you will work well with money.
Mm-hmm.
Risk and uncertainty with money don't always correlate. But in the entrepreneurial space, watching different entrepreneurs, people who have long green lines lose a lot because we risk a lot.
Right.
We risk a lot. And I'm constantly testing my boundaries financially.
Okay.
And otherwise.
All right.
Boundaries in life, boundaries in finance, boundaries in my business.
So you're pushing yourself.
I'm pushing myself.
Because that energy is a driver.
Yeah.
When you're up against a wall and you're last minute and you're in a crisis.
Yeah.
Then you're riveted to do.
I know.
And does that work? Does it not? I mean,
it has.
Okay.
It has. I'm figuring that out with my motivation strategy. So working NLP into it. Like, do I always have to have a crisis to take action? No. Like, I need to make sure that I'm not artificially creating crises to get in action, but putting myself in.
So do you do that? Because I do that.
Oh, I have.
I do that a lot
sure.
to get myself going. I kind of fake myself out.
Yeah.
I'll set a timer.
Yeah.
I
have to mission critical. And what I've noticed is when I'm not very busy or not very mission critical, my motivation is not there. So then am I getting results, right? If I'm not up against it, am I getting results? So I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that to get more consistent results. But to your point with Tyler, highs and lows, there's going to be highs and lows.
The income is very high and very low.
Mm-hmm.
I think the worst year financially for me was when my income was the same. Every 2 weeks.
Yeah. No risk.
Weeks. I was like,
uh-huh.
What difference does it make then?
What difference does it make?
For me, that's,
yeah. I have to ask my clients that. I get to know their Kolbe. We're talking about what they're doing for work, where they're getting results. And that fact finder follow through needs that consistency.
Absolutely.
More than the quick start.
Of course. Yes.
And so that's, just pairing them into the right. I have a client right now where she's been in real estate and those highs and lows of real estate do not work for her. And she had took her Kolbe and she's high fact finder follow through. And she's been so miserable in real estate because there's highs and lows. And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to get you out of real estate. Let's go find you a really boring business.
And
she's like, oh my gosh, I was just looking at this, and this, like boring. I was just looking at buying this store and I was just looking at this. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect for you. The highs and lows and the swings do not work for you.
No. See? Speaking their language. Speaking right into that.
So the financial Kolbe, okay, I'm going to finish my conversation about this because if you're curious about all of this, you know where to go now. You can find Gail. You can work with me. We'll help you on this is figuring out what your strengths are, what your talents are. But the financial Kolbe then talks about your relationship with risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the best conversation a couple could have. They could both take their Kolbes.
Mm-hmm.
They could both take their financial, get their financial MO.
Yep.
what is it called? Financial Colby?
It is, yeah.
And go, oh, wow, look how we're different. Look how we're different.
Right.
Rather, look at how we're wrong.
Absolutely. And everything's in there. Spending money, investing, entrepreneurship. There's a lot in that Financial Colby.
Yeah, a lot.
It's a lot.
Can you talk about how
Saving.
the freezer so Swifty, we call Dan, Gail's husband, Swifty. Okay, so you wanted to get a freezer for the garage. And Swifty, what is his MO?
8543.
Yeah, so high fact finder, middle of, but has more follow through.
Right.
And then lower quick start.
Is this like the dryer situation with you and Jimmy?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Or the washing machine?
Totally. But see, Jimmy, neither of us have fact finders, so we're both kind of screwed in that direction. But anyway, so you wanted to get a freezer, but before you took action,
right,
Swifty needed to do the research.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what was that experience like in your household?
We're going to Consumer Reports the freezer.
Yeah.
We're going to compare. We're going to Yelp review freezers.
You're not going to.
No.
Dan's going to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And absolutely. And that's what he needs to, and that's great.
How long did it take him to do the research?
A week.
And then the measurement of the freezer.
I was the one who measured it.
You measured it.
I actually measured it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it needed to fit a certain amount of weight of meat. And so I based that on how big of a freezer we needed. And then the space that we had to fit it in.
So you envisioned it.
I envisioned it, and then he went and looked it up.
And then he brought you the options?
He did.
Yes. Right?
Yes.
And then what?
And then we just looked, and then we started looking and waiting and just seeing about deals or I would say the best price at the best store, things like that.
Yeah.
Good time. Yeah.
It's a great way for the two of your MOs to meet.
It is. It did happen that way. Yeah, it did.
I love it. I tell my clients, because I take action really fast. Way before someone who is a fact finder follow through will take action.
Right.
But the difference of homework that I give my clients based on their MOs for a fact finder follow through, I say this strategically now. I go research this. We're going to meet in 2 weeks. Here's your homework. Here's what I want you to research. And here's what I want you to map out. And when we come back together, we'll process through it and figure out what action you want to take.
It's so great.
So great.
It's great because you're meeting them where they're at and you're not trying to make it like you.
Right.
That's great.
Right. But then my high quick starts, I go, okay, let's envision this. And let's look at the big picture.
Do they love that?
They love it.
Yeah.
They love it. Okay, let's look at the big picture. Let's talk about the different scenarios of the options. Let me give you this option, scenario A, B, and C. Let's map it out really quick. Let's just do it really quick. What are you going to do?
Do you ask them that right away? Oh, that's so great.
What are you going to do?
That's so rich.
Okay, go do that. Come back and let me know how it went. Totally different scenarios, totally different people, totally different advice. And I haven't, to this point in my career, been able to articulate it so clearly. Because I've been so backed up emotionally about what I don't like about certain coaches or about the finance industry. And I've realized most recently, was it last week we had a session? Maybe we did a film and I was like, oh, I don't need to justify myself anymore.
No.
I don't need to explain anymore.
No.
I don't need to tell anybody why I'm so different. I just need to do what I do.
Yes.
And I do it really well. And we're helping people. And that's it. Game over.
Done.
End of story.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all I have today. And I'm done.
And
what time
we're
is
out.
it? Oh, that's good. That was a good conversation.
What time is it?
It's 10:51.
Is that good?
I guess.
All right.
I'm done.
Cree's like, all right, I'm going to have to edit back out of that thing.
No, maybe not. Maybe you don't have to. So, okay.
We're not done.
We're not done. No, because we need to end. I'm going to put it in a bow. We'll put it in a bow.
Okay.
First of all, for those of you who are listening to this, I really hope that you're having some ahas. And I would really love for you to tell us what your ahas are. In the comments. What are you learning? Give us some feedback.
Right. For the quick starts, I dare you.
I dare you.
I dare you to tell us an aha.
That's it. Do it.
I don't think you can do it in 30 seconds. Go for it.
Go for it. Send Gail and I a DM on Instagram or however you're getting this content. Let us know what's been valuable to you about this. And then let us know what you're going to do as a result. So learning, spoiler alert, that was I meant to say earlier, for Fact Finder follow through, you can't just hang out in Fact Finder forever. You have to take action. But you can do the research, you can get the information, you can put the plan together and then take action. But if you need help taking action, that's what a good coach is for.
I would say trust your need for details, your innate need for details, and don't overthink it. Because as soon as you start overthinking it, it takes you out of your flow. Then you're going to be over. So don't overthink it. Stay in your lane, get enough details, and then move.
Yeah. And I have a money personality quiz, which really complements the financial Colby, because there's I've talked about this on the show before. There's who imprinted on you, what your parents' lives were like.
Right.
Your parents are not like you. Your parents are both high Fact Finder follow through. And you're on the other side of that, high quick start. And there's a lot of conflict there and how they're teaching you. And we all intersect in our lives where at some point we go, yeah, that's how my parents raised me. But this is who I am. And I hope that for everyone that has the opportunity to hear this whenever they do, that's the takeaway, is that there's who you are.
Yes.
And who you are is amazing.
The most valuable contributor to the world is who you are.
Yep. So start asking that question and finding the right tools, the right people, the right spaces for you to have that conversation and figure it out so that you can do what you were born to do with your spiritual gifts, with your intellect, with your emotions, with your cognitive strengths. And that's what I define as a life on fire.
I love that. Thank you,
because I love fire. Yeah, thank you.
I love it.
What would you want? What's the last sentiment that you want to leave in this conversation today? What's on your heart?
I would say what I said at the beginning, what I cannot not do is leave someone hanging or straggling in a world where they're not free to be themselves.
Yeah.
I really would love to be able to help them find out who they are and make a difference their way.
That's right. Find out who they are, make a difference their way.
Yes.
You're doing that with young people in high school settings for that reason. The younger they can find out, the more empowered they can be.
Right.
And parents also, you can teach this to yourself.
Right.
You can give your kids the freedom that they need and everybody can be happy. Because at the end of the day, isn't that all we want?
Yes. That's usually what parents want. Yeah.
And as adults, I think that's what we want too.
Agreed.
Permission granted. Cool. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, friend.
I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. And thanks for everyone who joined the show today. I really do believe that this is such a powerful part of the work that I'm doing in my world. Yeah. Thank you to Gail for bringing this into my world. And for all of you listening to The Real Money Show or watching The Real Money Show on YouTube, we are so glad that you are here. Tune into our next show, next guest, next ahas, and let us know what you're learning along the way. Thanks for joining us.